Hello, Niner faithful, and welcome to Victory Monday on the Johnny Dale Football Academy podcast. On the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game, we do that by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There, you can comment into the live show. So be sure to hit the notification bell so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and Twitter, or X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, the usual suspects. You're inside the Johnny Dale Football Academy. Oh, Niner faithful. Were we ever not faithful from the first 3 minutes of the game? My gosh, I don't even know what to say. I'll just get into it. Johnny, how are you feeling?
Oh, I feel so fantastic. I was living my best life last night, trolling Dallas. I don't know if y'all saw, if you follow me on Twitter, I was just posting picture or GIF after GIF of sad Cowboys fans in the fourth quarter. And I'll be honest, I had put out a few days ago. I said, this game is different because Dallas is trying to prove that they're a team that's legit. Everybody knows San Francisco's legit. San Francisco is playing to prove that they will slap the ever living daylights out of anybody who thinks they can hang. And I was having a real hard time not posting that in the middle of the third quarter. I was like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Game's not over.
Right.
Don't start victory lapping now.
Michael Strahan. Don't forget about Michael
Right.
Strahan.
And it didn't matter. I mean, we just absolutely curb stomped, eviscerated, destroyed, trampled, stampeded, if you want to be a little dad jokey about the Cowboys. Took care of business in the biggest way possible. The funnest thing to me was watching. We pulled our starters on defense and then picked off Dak Prescott again. That was just fantastic.
Yeah. To see the guys laughing on the sideline, giving high fives in the third quarter is just something like faithful to the Bay, right? We're used to seeing Steph Curry do that maybe, and the Warriors when they're up 30 by the fourth quarter and like they're just having a good time on the bench. But in the NFL, it doesn't really work that way, that you have 15 minutes of football, right? Where the guys are just chopping it up. You see John Lynch just giving high fives. John Lynch is giving high fives to the equipment guys. Like he's just having a ball. And there's 10 minutes of game left. And so it's just awesome. Welcome in everyone to the chat. Remember to hit hashtag JD49. We always want to boost the algorithm. Welcome to the early morning, right? We're trying something new. That way we get more eyes on the channel because this will be available then all day. Obviously, we want you live in the chat, but if you are catching this and you're wondering why, it may be because you didn't hit the notification bell. So make sure you hit that. The chat is booming. We got 43 people in here. Love to see it. Let's go through the game. That first drive, I want to talk about. It's so weird to have this team not only have a slow start in that we're undefeated, but not even have some of these slow starts in the actual game. Like, I just feel like week in and week out, we are setting the tone from the jump, and it's like a hot knife through butter. And I don't know. You can't say, oh, well, the preparation is different this year. Like, I mean, I don't know. That'd be a knock on Kyle Shanahan. We're always going to be prepared, but what is it? How our teams just are clueless to start the game?
Well, I mean, this team is different. Somebody put it up here in the chat. Lone Draftsman. I think he really hit what I told a friend of mine who's off in Belize right now. So if Cody, if you're watching, I'm always thinking about you, buddy. Um, he's in Belize right now, but we were texting and he's like, dude, how you feeling? And I said, this feels like the most talented 49ers team I think I've seen since the dynasty teams. You know, this
Crazy.
is
You
this
texted
is
me
what,
that. You
and I
texted me
texted you
that.
that as well. Yeah. That this feels like the strongest 49ers. This is what it felt like to watch the 49ers as a kid. And
Yeah.
that's what I love. 2011, 12, 13, the team was really, really good, but they were also, scraping by a lot of wins, and they were winning through grit and determination, and they were a fun team. I love the Harbaugh teams. Okay. The Harbaugh teams did not remind me of the 80s and 90s 49ers. They reminded me of a really good football team in this era. And then what we've had the last few years always felt like a really good team that tended to get in their own way at times and tended to uh, just not always be locked in. This team this year feels like what it was like to watch the 90s 49ers, that they were going to just roll everybody in their way. And there was really only maybe one or two teams in the NFL that you looked around and said they might have a chance. And obviously, that those 90s 49ers teams, either injuries or Dallas always standing in the way, because those 90s teams, it felt like every time they got to the playoffs, there was some sort of horrible injury that happened, or something going on, or the team was just so banged up. And then obviously with Dallas early on and stuff. But this is what those teams felt like, that they were just in a different class in the NFL than 95% of the NFL. And that's what this team feels like. This was supposed to be, this was billed as two A-class teams going against each other. And what we found out was the 49ers were an A+ team, and the Cowboys are really like a B or B- team. And I was just trying to, at the end of that game, just look through it through the lens of a Cowboys fan, which is a horrible experience. Don't do it. Save yourself. But I was trying to think of what it would be like if I was a Cowboys fan and you're sitting here going, we've told ourselves that we are a serious contender at this point. At 3-1, they had the biggest point differential in the league at that point, and they had the number one scoring defense. They were scoring over 30 points a game, and you're saying, we have built a team that can sock it to the 49ers. We're going to prove it this year. We're going to prove it in front of the lights. We're going to go into their house and take their status, and you got eviscerated in front of everybody, from, like you said, from the opening get-go.
Yeah.
And in that, they lost like 4 or 5 starters throughout the game to injury. Like, how bad is your Monday morning as a Cowboys fan?
Booty clapped.
Somebody said booty clapped.
The lone
And
draftsman. Love it.
I mean, how much does your Monday suck as a Cowboys fan? Because you've got to then look down the road and say, this team has no chance, because you are not getting through that 49ers team. There's no way. I mean, this was put the league on notice, sort of thing. Everybody knew that San Francisco was legit. Now you're saying they just dominated what everybody has had a consensus view is one of the best teams in the league.
It was crazy.
Dominated. I mean, this was never
Unreal.
in
Yeah.
doubt. Like you said,
No,
it was from
never.
the open. Like, when Dallas is sitting there after their first 3 drives and they had like -1 yards, total yards, and we're going right down every single game. We've scored an opening drive touchdown every single game. This is a success at the 49ers that I don't know if like I said, since the dynasty era. It's
Yeah.
hard to look at this team. I mean, and part of this is, and like I'd said, and I remember people sitting there trying to argue about, well, yeah, but no team has really, there's only one team that's won a Super Bowl with a quarterback on a rookie contract. Because I said, look, 6 out of the last 12 teams that have made the Super Bowl had a quarterback on a rookie contract. That's a huge advantage. And you're seeing they built this team that way. There is not another team in this league that you can look around and say is as talented as the 49ers. There's just not a team. You can look
Right.
at some teams, like let's say, look at the Eagles. Okay. They're 5-0. They're a really good team. But
Yeah.
you look at their offense and you say, okay, they maybe have the best offensive line in football, but let's look at their skill positions. They got two great wide receivers and they got a pretty good running back. They do not have a Christian McCaffrey at running back, and we have an all-pro receiver, and we have Brandon Ayuk, who probably could be all-pro this year. We'll see what happens throughout the rest of the season, but he's playing like it. He's playing like an all-pro guy. You have an all-pro tight end, and your quarterback is leading the league, and it's not even close in quarterback
Right.
rating. I mean,
And
it's
for
not
me, it's
even
about
close.
for me, it's about coaching too. Advantage Shanahan on that as well. And I don't dislike that coach over there. Like I think he does a decent job. If I was a Philly fan, I would like that coach. I'm not going to give him any more credit than that, but still, advantage Shanahan for sure. And the one thing with this Cowboy game that stuck out to me was I talked about the efficiency on third down and the amount of first downs in general. When you hold a team, and I don't care if you're playing a peewee high school team, or I don't care what you're doing, but you hold them to less than 10 first downs in the entire game is huge. So they had 8 first downs, and on third down, they were 4 for 11. And we talked about uh before just that Dallas is number one in figuring out a way to keep the chains moving. And the way that we took care of business, they had 57 rushing yards, 140 passing yards. They did not even go the length of the football field 2 times. They did not get 200 yards total. So it was like, it's hard to, and it just happened, you know, 12 hours ago. So I love kind of doing the show in the morning as like we're still like we're still basking in the Christmas glow of it, because
Christmas glow.
I don't know what the ramifications are for like the rest of this week. Like, I can't wait to see, a Skip Bayless or a Colin Cowherd or what ESPN does, and like throughout this week. Like I'm nervous, like you said you haven't seen this since we were kids, and it's like you want to still cross your fingers, right, that like we stay healthy. Is this the team of destiny? You got to enjoy the ride a little bit, but domination is not even the word. Dak 3 picks, the sacks. How about that play where Fred Warner, it's been well documented, you know where I'm going with this. Fred Warner cuts off a route to CD Lamb, make sure that he doesn't get a reception. And then the end of that play ends with a sack from
By
the
Fred
same
Warner.
guy,
Yeah.
by Fred Warner. Like, wait a minute, wait a minute. You're saying the guy went into coverage, took care of that, nothing doing. Then, I'm going to actually go sack the quarterback. That does not happen. And I love
That was a
Acho's tweet. Bar
yeah.
none, he's the best in the league.
Yeah, that was a clinic on how you play lurk coverage right there.
My lord.
They were in it from the broadcast. Looked like they were in cover one lurk, and so Fred's role is to lurk the middle of the field, and because what the other guys are taught is, and how they're coached is that they're going to deliver any inside routes to him. Okay, because he's their inside help defender, so he's got to lurk there, keep keep a vision technique on Dak, follow his eyes, and as Dak's rolling out, he doesn't just attack the quarterback. He's moving along and he's still following Dak's eyes. And the moment Dak commits to I'm not going to throw it anymore, he goes and gets a sack. I mean, that is textbook. You literally they should just have we should have a cut up of that and send this around the league and say, I don't know about the league, but send it to college because there's some valuable teaching we'll have there on this is how you play lurk coverage. I mean, perfect execution there. This was such a fun game. I mean, I was sitting there. I got the pregame jitters a little bit. I was
Yeah,
feeling
you tweeted that.
and then it was like it didn't take hardly anything in the game to get those pregame jitters out because we took off like crazy and just like you said, absolutely blew them out. Think about how this team feels like how the Eagles felt last year, because the Eagles were out of the gate coming out just destroying everybody, and you started to look at their offense and all their players and how they were doing everything, and you said, and people were going, I don't know how you beat these guys. That's how the rest of the league is looking at San Francisco right now. That they're looking at this team and going, how do you beat them? I mean, if you're a defensive coordinator and you start thinking about your matchup against the 49ers, what is your key to victory here? Because
It's tough.
the Cowboys literally just said, we're going to do everything we can to stop Christian McCaffrey from breaking this game open and breaking out in the run and being a dominant force. In the passing game, he was like a gravitational force that drew everything there. And you still had them put up their highest point total on the season on you. And you were the number one scoring defense in the league. They literally allowed 41 points through 4 games total.
And then 42 to us.
And then we put 42 points on them
42 burger.
in 3 quarters, basically. I mean, it was like 3 quarters in a couple minutes.
Yeah.
We didn't even finish the whole game. This could have, I mean, if Kyle Shanahan went full on Mike McDaniels, this would have been a 50+ burger.
Oh, no question.
Okay?
No question.
Like this was as bad as it gets. And I was loving every little bit of it.
We had 4 punts, and I feel like 3 of them were just like, oh, yawn. Like we just were like, well, we don't.
Well, it's almost to the point when you have an incomplete pass, it feels like something like, whoa, what happened there?
Yeah.
Like not even like, oh, you know, I'm a little surprised that happened, you know, or oh man, what happened there? It's like, oh, that was weird, because we're not even used to seeing incomplete passes. Not even used to seeing incomplete passes. We're getting a little spoiled, I will say.
Yes.
But
17 for 24. What are you doing, Brock?
Right. I mean, you're sitting there going, oh man, this isn't what we saw. But the dude threw for 4 touchdowns.
Right. So
4 touchdowns. I mean, he comes out, he throws touchdowns, he wins games, he's efficient with the ball. And the throw he made down the middle to Ayuk, the layered throw he made over Van Der Esch was one of the, I mean, that is a high level throw that you're going to see in this league. And it was just fantastic. You know, and I mean, I think it was the perfect cherry on the top for a day of the 49ers Cowboys. I was about to say, you know, you almost wish the game was more competitive. No, I don't wish the game was more competitive, because I was loving it. I was so jacked up for this game. Like for real. I was so looking forward to it. I literally I had to take a nap earlier in the day because I was up about every hour and a half on the night. I'm going to show this because that is my brisket. I smoked that brisket Saturday night into Sunday. This is a brisket I got from our wonderful affiliate, White Oak Pastures. And so I was up every hour and a half checking on my firebox. I have a side smoker, indirect heat smoker. I'm in Alabama. That's what you got to do. I smoked it on some oak wood, and I had it in there. I smoked that thing for, it was about 12 hours overnight. And then I finished it off in the oven, and it was mighty delicious. But you know, that's what I did because it was Cowboys Day. It was Cowboys Day. It's Cowboys 49ers. You got to have a special thing for Cowboys 49ers. And so I smoked the brisket, you know, in honor of it being wanting to take down Texas. And so I smoked the brisket as the 49ers smoked the Cowboys.
No question, man. That was so. You texted me those pictures. I was like, I'm a meatitarian. I love it.
That was my first ever brisket. I have never
Ooh.
smoked a brisket before. Okay. Normally I'm in the South, like I said, we do pork butts, we do ribs. I'd never taken a chance with a brisket. I'd always been a little nervous. Brisket's a big deal. And so when we were onboarded as an affiliate with White Oak Pastures, I was like, you know, I got to try this out. So I ordered their Packer brisket. It was an 8-pound brisket. Somebody told me you can't cook an 8-pound brisket. That's going to be shoe leather. Well, look at that. That was 12 hours on the smoker, and then another 4 hours in the oven, finishing off. I got it right up to just over 190 on the temperature thermometer there. And it was mighty fine. I got half of it left still. It was juicy, great. My wife she's usually pretty good about barbecue. She's like, I like most barbecue. She's like, that is the best barbecue I've ever had. It was absolutely phenomenal because it was Cowboys 49ers day. And when we talk about the 49ers being in a different class, okay, let's just look at this. I pulled up some numbers this morning, Adam, and I was almost a little surprised. Point differential. That's how many. What is the point differential between what you're scoring and what the teams you are playing
Plus
are scoring?
99, baby.
The 49ers are plus 99 points through 5 games. They're almost scoring 20 points a game more than their opponents.
We've given up the same amount of points as the Cleveland Browns. By the way, the Cleveland Browns have not played their 5th game yet. So we are by
Right.
far the number 1 defense in that way as well.
And when people talk about what I mean, again, different class of teams, let's look at the Eagles, who are 5-0, and everyone's saying, you know, that's the team you got to take down. Right, they're the reigning NFC champs.
Yep.
Okay, the Eagles are plus 37. We have scored 62 more points. There's a 62 point differential more of what we scored over our opponents than the Eagles. When we talk about a different class of team, the Eagles are 5-0. Their point differential is 37 points. San Francisco is 99 points. 20
Unreal.
points a game. This is a different class of team. You're 62 points through 5 games higher than the other 5-0 team.
And the Dolphins dropped
insane.
70 on a team,
and the Dolphins dropped 70 on a team, and they're still not there.
Yeah.
I mean, this is completely manhandling every team. The only team that wasn't a 2-score win was the team that kicked a field goal with literally time running out, down 2 scores
to cover the spread.
That's the only team that hasn't lost to you by 2 scores.
Right.
I mean, this is a dominant team that is just rolling. Number 2 in the league, just so you know, is the Buffalo Bills at plus 79. You're still 20 points above them.
It's crazy to think. A couple things that I want to go over. One, as we have over.
Let me hit one more thing.
Yeah.
Let me hit one more thing. You know who number 3 in the league is in point differential? Dallas. They just lost by 32 points.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
I mean, let's just think about this. Like, what other team are you putting in the same class? Is it the Bills? I mean, maybe the Bills are the only team in the league that you could say might be in the same class, but they just lost to the Jaguars.
Right.
This is, I mean, like when we talk about what it was great to be a 49ers fan back in the dynasty days, this is what it felt like.
Yeah, no question. Just dominating at.
Sorry, Adam. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
I'm
you're fired
up this morning.
Hey, I'd rather have you fired up than sad. So, here's a couple of things that I wanted to go over. One, we have over 70 people now watching in the chat, which is awesome. So we appreciate you guys. 7:30 in the morning, you're here with us. And I wanted to remind you guys, the way to grow this channel, the number one way is my favorite way, is to go up to people that you see in Niners gear, or if you have a personality like me, just ask them if they like the 49ers and show them the channel. You know that Johnny will have this video breakdown video coming out really soon. And so you can tell them about that. You can show them the video on Brock Purdy that has reached 50,000 views. Congrats to Johnny on that content. Amazing. 50,000 views, guys. So we want every video that we produce for you guys to have 50,000 views. And that happens when you guys like and share, you subscribe, you hit the notification bell, all that stuff. It matters. There's a reason why content creators say that. It does matter. It keeps us going. And so that's one thing I want to say. The other thing I want to mention is with these 49ers, I wanted to talk about what you said about game plan. And when you said that earlier, my head instantly went to, okay, what's the game plan for the Dolphins? Hit him in the mouth. What's the thing for Dallas? If you can over physical them and win the turnover battle. What are, like, think of the good teams around the league, and there's things that you can point to, and it's so cool that you know that head coaches around the league are like, okay, what do the 49ers, what do they not do so well that we can kind of, oh, whoops, there isn't, like, in every statistical category, even on special teams, I thought Ray did a great job. I mean, we covered them pretty well. Like, I don't know what else you could think of like, well, we need to attack the right side. You know, they're a little bit like, dude, I get that our offensive line isn't number 1 in the league, but I mean, it's performing at a high level. And the last thing I wanted to get your take on was our depth seems like it's there this year. And let's talk through the guys on that second wave that are not only intercepting passes, but just really holding it down to the point where it doesn't even look like there's a drop off, and how that could be the key moving forward.
So back to your first thing, the offensive line, they've been playing absolutely great. I mean, the opening run lanes, and again, you see, we've criticized Kyle for this for years about how we don't have those premier pass protectors. Trent Williams is because he's also the best run blocker in the league. Trent Williams is just he's a freak. He's a generational tackle talent. I mean, these guys do not grow on trees. But and the concern this year was McKivitz, right? Colton McKivitz. He had the first game against Pitt. TJ Watt got the 3 sacks. Since then, that dude's been solid. I mean, by this point in the season, we usually had at least 3 or 4 pretty egregious clips of Mike McGlinchey getting absolutely manhandled or whooped in some way. We haven't had that with Colton McKivitz, and he's coming in at a price tag about $15 or $16 million cheaper than what Mike McGlinchey was. So when people were worried about, oh man, we don't have, we're not really shoring up in that right tackle spot, and we let McGlinchey go, and we didn't have a plan. Actually, no, they absolutely did have a plan, and that plan is coming around because you're seeing McKivitz has been an absolute stellar run blocker, and he's holding up well enough in the pass game. Purdy's been sacked 8 times on the year. Again, you go back to that. He got sacked a bunch of times in week 1, and then it's been about 1 sack a game since then.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't ask for much more. And Christian McCaffrey just seems like he's just ripping off everything. And like I said, Jordan Mason had the big run that put it to 42. I mean, this O-line has been playing absolutely fantastic. Dallas was coming in as apparently one of the most talented defensive lines in the league, and what you saw is that they're built to go against a different NFL. They're built to try and take down the Chiefs. They're built to try and take down the Buffalo Bills. That's what the Cowboys, because the Cowboys just assume that they're going to be in the Super Bowl because that's how Jerry Jones believes every year. But then he forgot you had to go through a juggernaut, through a heavyweight boxer in San Francisco that's going to punch you in the mouth, and you won't even get to the Super Bowl to be able to use those kinds of pass rush guys against these pass heavy teams. And so San Francisco is actually, has able to come in there and do that. And one thing that is consistent in the NFL, and we love in today's rules and today's NFL to talk about the spread around, slinging out passing game, that gets different when you hit December and you hit January. Yes, the weather does affect things. It starts getting colder. Guys are running a little bit slower. It's a little bit harder to catch the ball. These things actually do affect the game. It doesn't matter if you're in Miami. You got to play up north at some point.
Yeah.
And you also start seeing that defenses are wearing teams down through this point. And you've shown all of the different variances that you're going to have throughout the season. So there's a lot less going to catch people off guard at the end of the season. People know who you are. And so when it comes to December and January, it comes down to who is going to be able to impose their will, meaning the other team knows what you want to do. There's very little secrets out there. They know you want to run the ball and you want to run the ball off this spot, and they have your percentages. There's very little guesswork anymore by the time you get into January. It's about who's the toughest team that can impose their will and say, we're going to run the ball off the left side and you are not going to stop us. And if you absolutely have to load up to stop us, then we can hit you with something else. But you have to be able to line up and take us on and not let us do what we want to do. And this is a team that is able to impose their will on anybody around the league. If you look around the league, is there anybody you're sitting here saying, I don't know if we could do what we just did against Dallas to that team? I don't see a defense in the league that I say we couldn't do that against.
Right.
Because again, this was supposed to be the best defense in the league that we just rolled.
40 burger.
And it turned out no, they're not the best defense in the league. And just think about this. Everybody would say, well, who have we played? Who have we played? Dallas came in scoring over 30 points a game, and our average points per game given up dropped from 14.5 to 13.6.
We're now giving up less than 2 touchdowns per game.
Less than 2 touchdowns per game. Again,
in 60 minutes of football, guys. Like,
let's put this in perspective. 2013 Seahawks, Legion of Boom, one of the best defenses we've seen over the last 20 years. 14.44 points per game is what they gave up. And so people said, what offenses have we played? Well, we just played what was one of the top. It was a top 5 offense in this league, held them to 5 points. Dak, one thing people are saying about Dak this year was, hey, man, he's not turning the ball over. Yeah. Well, then he made Skip Bayless throw his jersey away, which is fantastic. This is a team. I mean, I really think this is going to come down to. It's very possible this is going to be either San Francisco against Miami or Buffalo at the end of the year. And again, at the end of the year in January, I like San Francisco over any of those teams. Why? Because we run the ball in a more physical way. Now the Dolphins can run the ball. I mean, they got Mostert, they got speed there. Problem that we've seen, and the reason why we let Mostert go, is he tends to not be around through a full season.
Yeah.
And so is he going to be there in December, January? And what's their health going to look like? You could say the same thing about us, but, McCaffrey's shown to be very durable for most of his career. People always said the injury history of McCaffrey, and that one kind of I understand, but I also don't understand where that came from, because if you looked at his injury history, there was not a single significant injury there. It was, he'd miss 4 or 5 weeks with a hamstring. He'd miss 4 weeks with a groin. He would miss, this with a calf strain. It was never, it was strains and it was some pulls, but it was never like you've torn something horrible. You've broken something. You're out for 8-9 weeks. We've never seen, Christian McCaffrey's never had that. And so, I think this is a game that, man, I'm feeling so good after this game. Absolutely fantastic. The 49ers are a different class of team. They just are. And nobody can argue that. And Brock Purdy, I mean, come on. At this point, can some people just put the Brock Purdy talk to bed at this point? I mean, the guy has not lost a regular season. The only game that is on his loss chart is the game he got hurt tore his UCL in the first quarter. That is the only game. The only game he has lost is when he could not physically throw the ball. When the man has been able to physically throw the ball, no team has been able to beat him. So what are you going to do if you're a defensive coordinator? You say, okay, do we make Brock Purdy throw it and beat us? Because New York did that, and we put 30 points on New York, and Brock Purdy was amazing against the Giants. And they blitzed him every time. Or you come out like the Cardinals and you say, well, Wink Martindale blitzed at the highest rate that has ever happened, so we're going to play 8-man coverage a ton, which is what teams have done against Mahomes. We saw the Bengals do that a few years ago, or a couple years ago against Mahomes, and they were very successful with it. Mahomes started to really struggle. The Eagles tried to do that against Brock Purdy, or the Cardinals tried to do that against Brock Purdy. A little Freudian slip there because of Gannon. The Cardinals tried to do that against Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy went 20 of 21. Yeah. I mean, if you're a defensive coordinator, what is your game plan here? You can't send pressure. He's going to whoop you up. You can't drop everybody into coverage. He's going to sit there and work his progressions and sit there and work the matchups. The Cowboys came in with what was supposed to be the best pass rush in the league, that they could drop 7 in coverage and get after you, and you just dice them up for 4 touchdowns.
And Micah Parsons, they showed the stat at the end. He had 1 hurry, no hits, nothing. And someone tweeted, "Is Micah Parsons playing?" He made a couple plays in the run game, and you saw his value to the team, but he just did not have that effect, and that's crazy, because I wanted to go through. We love going through the whys and hows of the game, right? And so I'm looking at the stats, and I just want to run through them rapid fire. And in the chat, you guys rip through and tell me what sticks out to you, and we'll get Johnny's opinion too. So first downs, 25-8. Third down efficiency, we talked about 4 for 11 for them. We were 6 for 11. Both of us were 0 for 1 on fourth down. Like that really mattered. Rushing yards.
And that one came literally because we didn't want to kick a field goal to
Right.
embarrass them. It was like we ran for it on like fourth and 16.
Yeah. Just
Something
the
like
just
that.
the clock was over. Like it was
Because it was too close to be able to punt it
it was like 2
really.
minutes left
And
in the game.
yeah, and I mean, so that's the
That
yeah.
doesn't count,
And
but
there
yeah.
no, it doesn't count. And now their fourth down doesn't count either. That they kneeled the ball
How
with
awesome is
8
that?
seconds. Like, how can everybody was so confused? Like, what, the game's not over? The quarterback knelt down on fourth
He
down.
should
I
have
mean,
just ran
you want to
backwards
talk?
for 8 seconds.
I mean, for real, he could have they could have hiked it and him stand there. Nobody would have hit him and let him run the clock out. I mean,
I would have
you
hit
want
him.
to talk about a roll over and die moment? When you kneel the ball down on fourth down, when you are losing in a game, that is a roll over and die. They literally, the Cowboys rolled over and
You
died.
look at the last 3 games that we've played, 2 of them have been in the playoffs, and look at look at the final play. You had Zeke Elliott at center, then you had Dak Prescott with no time left. He's running down the field and can't do anything, and we like it's just funny the 3 times that we've beat them the last 3 times. Like you look at that last play and it just gives you that boost of energy for the day knowing that it happened that way.
It makes you feel like an eggnog latte, or uh or cinnamon rolls in the morning, uh some sugar cookies during in December. It just gives you that warm fuzzy feeling.
The same fuzzy feeling that we have as there's so many of you in the chat. Remember to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell as we are going through some of the stats. We are at rushing yards 170 to 57. My buddy, on my one of my podcast production companies, we had an early morning Teams meeting, and he said, "Dude, I was playing fantasy football against Christian McCaffrey, and I thought I was going to get obliterated, and all he did was get 1 touchdown and he didn't get that many yards." And so, but then I looked and he had Brock Purdy who threw 4 touchdowns. So I did get obliterated. But I thought that was interesting that we got 170 yards and Mason, technically outperformed. Now, I'm not saying like deep down he outperformed him, but yardage wise. So we had 170 yards rushing. McCaffrey did not have close to 100. And Dallas, though, only had 57. And then in passing yards, we know Brock had 250, 251. And we only gave up 140. Total yards was 421 to 197. Sacks were 4-1. Interceptions were 3-0. They punted 5. We punted 4. And then the big, 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 big one, time of possession was 37 minutes and 5 seconds to their 22 minutes and 55 seconds. So in the chat, what stuck out to you about some of those numbers? For me, it was about third down efficiency and time of possession.
Time of possession and running the ball. In being able to stop the run and run the ball. In the end, that's what this league comes down to. Again, we talk about how people love the passing game and all that stuff. It comes down to, can you run the ball and can you stop the run? Because you make the Cowboys with Dak Prescott have to throw the ball, and Dak's going to make mistakes. I mean, and this is also, let's give some love to Tayshaun Gibson. I mean, when Dak threw that interception, like that was one of the ugliest interceptions you're going to see. But in Dak's defense, they see cover 1 man, and he drops back, and he tried to look off. I saw that the angle from behind Dak on that, and he tried to look off Gibson to the other side. Gibson didn't take the bait, and then he heaves it down there, and it was really almost looked like an arm punt, and it wasn't. Like, that's the thing. And then the man Lenore getting in there and batting up the pass to Fred Warner, and then a little dragon concept slant flat they're trying to run on us, and Oren Burks gets in there and gets the interception. I mean, man, you cause 4 turnovers. You win the turnover battle, that's a big deal. And yeah, I mean, this was a game, like, it felt like Christian McCaffrey didn't have his best rushing performance, and we ran for 170 yards. I mean, this team there's no weaknesses on this team, and it's so fun to put it in perspective for some of us who've been around the dynasty era times. The 49ers, what they're scoring per game right now, if you aggregate it to a 16 game season, not a 17 game, because I want to put this in perspective of what we would understand. A 16 game season, we're on pace to score over 534 points. To put that in perspective, the 1998 San Francisco 49ers team, which is maybe one of the most talented offensive teams this team ever had. That was the highest scoring 49ers offense. That team had Garrison Hurst at running back. They had Terrell Owens. They had Jerry Rice. Okay, this was Brent Jones was still there. This was a very, very talented offense in 1998. 1998 offense, I think it was 488 points is what they scored.
I think they had Ken Dilger too, guys.
Yeah. And I mean, whatever. But I mean, to put it in perspective, that offense scored 400. We're talking a big step difference over this. You're talking like about 3 points a game more than one of the most explosive offenses with Hall of Famers in multiple skill positions
all over. Yeah.
And still, I mean, this was a team that was still riding so much off of the dynasty era where you could spend whatever you wanted. I mean, yeah, the salary cap was starting to come in, but they were really just in that, like, we're gonna win now, and we're gonna push it through. This offense is as good of an offense as we have ever seen in San Francisco. And so I don't want to hear anything more about Kyle Shanahan and he's just an offensive play caller. Look, we are beating up teams. 99 point differential. Come on. Like this is crazy. Like I don't want to hear anything about Kyle Shanahan. I don't want to hear any 49ers slander this week. I don't want to hear zero. I'm going to be coming after you on Twitter if I see people complaining about anything. Usually I unfollow those people or block them or mute them or whatever, but I ain't going to put up for it this week. Not this week. When you eviscerate Dallas, I ain't putting up with it. Kyle Shanahan, yeah, signed his extension. Fantastic.
Love it.
You know, and it was almost, and come on, what was with these stories this week about how Trey Lance was gonna clue in the Cowboys to what we were gonna do on offense? Well, good thing they did. Sure helped them out. We only scored 42 when we could have scored 53. Oh, okay, you know, it almost feels like it. Like, come on, this is crazy. And the 49ers, that I'm loving this season so far. I'm loving what we're seeing. We're gonna go play the Browns, who were on a bye this week. They got a good defense. They do. But they also got a scumbag sitting there at quarterback, and I hope Bosa breaks him in half.
Yeah, I like our chances definitely for playing Cleveland, which we'll get into later in the week. One thing that I wanted to ask you about was, let's be a little, if we're on this side of what can we do better, and you tweeted, this is the reason that it was like we don't go into that coverage or whatever on the touchdown that we did happen to give up. I know that you will go through this as well as some of these other plays that we've been talking about when you dissect.
I'm probably not going to touch that play on my. I'm probably not going to touch that play on my breakdown. People always wonder, you know, some games like this. Whoa, what happened on this play? And I go, look, here's what happens. Is I get about I have time for about 23 to 26 ish plays to break down. If I go any more than that, we're talking the breakdown video isn't going to come out for another 2-3 days.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I tend to do, here's my process for people who maybe haven't heard how the sausage is made. My process is that I will watch through all the film. I'll get a really good idea of, you know, in a sense of what the story of the game was, what happened. Okay. What led to success. So sometimes, like I remember coming out of the Raiders game last year and looking at how do we score 34 points. And a lot of that came from watching how Kyle Shanahan used those scripted plays, that opening portion, to understand what the Raiders were going to do in base defense against our base personnel, which was 21, 12, you know, 2 backs, 1 tight end, 1 back, 2 tight ends sort of thing. and then was able to exploit that. That's what I came out of the Raiders game looking at. So I talked about that a lot through the game, and I was showing these plays next to these plays to show people how you run this earlier in the game that sets up this down later in the game. And so I'll go through that, and sometimes it's okay. Were we able to run the ball? We were established the run, and that set up these passes. Was it we were able to complete these passes that opened up the run game, that opened up these screen passes? So I go through a lot of that, and I figure out what is the story of the game here. And then I pick plays that are going to help exemplify that and show that and tell that story off of what it was. If it was we did really good on our outside zone, then I'm going to show you 3-4 plays on our outside zone of it doing really well and how that set up something else. And so when I come to a game like this, we won 42-10. We only gave up 10 points. If one of those was a big touchdown down that side, I don't really care. That's not the story of the game. The story of the game is what we destroyed Dallas. So guess what? You're going to see a lot of defensive highlights this week. You're going to see a lot of offensive highlights this week. I'm definitely going to be breaking down every single touchdown that we scored, and then just looking at how, like, I'll look for how did we contain Micah Parsons, and I'm going to be seeing, okay, was it that we were able to establish certain things of the run and take away what they like to do with him? I'm going to be looking for those answers and letting the film tell me. But people always say, well, why didn't you show this play? Why didn't you show that play? And it's on a lopsided win like this, because I know it's going to happen this week. I know somebody's going to say, what happened on the Oliver touchdown? I'm going to say Oliver got beat. That's probably what it was going to be. But I'm not really interested in showing it because that wasn't the story of this game. The story of this game was that America's team looked more like the dollar store America's team. And it's going to be about how we eviscerated the Cowboys. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Hopefully I get the film here in another couple hours. I've had people on Twitter already saying, I'm like, man, where's that film breakdown? And I'm like, I haven't even gotten the film yet. That's one reason we're doing this earlier in the mornings, is because usually I get it in kind of late morning time, and once I get the film, I'm checked out for like 2 days. Just ask my wife about that. She's been in the chat. But I'm usually checked out for 2 days, and it became really, really hard for us to schedule time because that's what my Adam will attest to this. I'm usually texting him like really late on a Monday night, be like, dude, I totally forgot. I've been diving into the film for 6 hours.
Right.
And so we were talking about it. We said, well, okay, maybe we should do some early morning reaction shows for the game, because once that film comes out, I'm all into that film breakdown. So yeah, but I'm looking at, that's what the story of this game is going to be. So I'm not going to touch the Oliver play most likely.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Couple things. One, when you mentioned America's team, I tweeted yesterday at the bar I was at that there was some Cowboy fans in front of me, and it was going to be a long night for them, and they did leave early, as is tradition, you would think. But I did talk to one fan, and he mentioned something interesting to me that I wasn't sure if you knew or the chat knew. So listen to this, guys. America's team. So in the 50s, I guess that the commissioner and the owner of Dallas, I don't remember their names. They're kind of famous though, but um, they had a conversation of because they were buddies. All right, what division do you want to be in? And they said you can play in the NFC East, which plays that way. You can play the Philadelphia Eagles on the East. You play the Cardinals that are on the West. And what that means is that they didn't have a Sunday night game of the week, because what happens is you are now playing at that time slot where all of America is watching, because based on who you play, it's always in a time zone where you're going to be basically like the NBC Notre Dame situation growing up in the 80s. Notre Dame was just always on NBC, always. And so they're like America's team in that sense. It's because of the coverage that they had is why they were called America's team. And I truly had no idea. And I told that Cowboys fan, I looked him dead in the face and I said, yeah, that was like 50 years ago. You're no longer America's team. He put his head down and walked away. But I
Yeah,
never heard that.
I mean,
Have you guys heard that story before?
I had heard bits of that before. Because we forget that back then there was no national TV systems. You know, there was like NBC, which was the national broadcasting channel, but they had to go through local affiliates. And so when you had almost everything as far as TV programming was regional, and because if people remember TBS, they used to be called, the Turner Broadcasting Station, that was known as the Superstation. Why? Because it was the first channel that was broadcast everywhere.
Yeah.
It was in every single market in the country. And so, yeah, I mean, you don't always get every game, but Cowboys were that way. And so it was America's team. Well, America's team just got their rear end handed to them. And I mean, I can't, we can't say enough good things about this team. George Kittle getting 3 touchdowns last night. A buddy of mine, Jeremy, had been messaging me this week. He's like, I feel like this is going to be the George Kittle game. I think he's going to go off, and then he gets 3 touchdowns. And again, Brock Purdy has not thrown an interception. There's 2 quarterbacks in the NFL that have not thrown an interception: CJ Stroud and Brock Purdy. And when we talk about how good Brock Purdy is doing right now, the guy is literally, he's playing almost at a different stratosphere than most of the league. His completion percentage over expectation right now is ridiculous. I can't remember the exact numbers. David Lombardi tweeted out last night, and I was looking at it. I'm like, you're talking a historic pace. And when you are on historic paces, Kyle Shanahan has been a coach in this league for quite a while. His dad ran the same system with several Hall of Fame quarterbacks. You can't just say it's just the system. We have to, that narrative needs to go to bed, because you can't just say this is the system. Matt Ryan with Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta was one of the most talented offenses that you have seen in the NFL over the last 10 years, with who I think a guy who was in his prime is the best receiver we've seen in the league for probably 15 or 20 years. And that was Julio Jones in his prime. That dude, I mean, you want to talk about a guy who could do everything
when healthy,
Julio Jones,
and in his prime.
I mean, he was unreal that year. And we're talking about a CPOE so much higher than what Matt Ryan had. And Matt Ryan was MVP that year. This is bonkers. His quarterback rating right now is 123. Tua Tagovailoa is second in the league, and his quarterback rating, I think, is 112. And they're lighting up everything. And they literally have the 7 fastest times recorded in the NFL this season were from Miami players. This is not just the system. Green Bay is running the same system. LA is running the same system. New York Jets are running the same system. Miami Dolphins are running the same system. These are all teams running the same system. Now, they don't have Kyle Shanahan, but everybody's talking about the genius that Mike McDaniels is. What Brock Purdy is doing in this offense is insane. This is not just a system quarterback. And we talked about it all off season, that if Brock Purdy was healthy week 1, you roll with Brock Purdy. I didn't even want to hear the discussion of anybody else week 1, that if Brock Purdy was healthy, he was going to play. Why? Because the film didn't lie. And people wanted to argue, oh, he just does this. Oh, he just does that. Oh, it's just his playmakers. If you had Trey Lance in there with all these playmakers, it would be the same way. And I kept saying, no, it wasn't a knock on Trey Lance. Okay, I'm not going down that road. It was that Brock Purdy showed that he is so good, and his decision-making and his ability to get through his reads, his poise was at such a high level that I was sitting there saying, I would take him. And I was a guy who I was very vocally supportive of Jimmy G. And I was like, Jimmy G can go wherever he wants, because Brock Purdy has shown me everything that I want to see from a quarterback. And you're seeing that in Brock Purdy. And I put it out on Twitter last night, and let's hear you in the chat. When we start talking about quarterback rankings, which whatever Steven Ruiz or whoever from the whatever show I commented on he ranked Brock Purdy the 25th quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
That, I mean, I honestly, we're all going to pull receipts. I bookmarked it, his thing, because he said he would stop covering the NFL if the 49ers won a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy.
Yep.
Well, guess what? If that come February, I think you're going to have a whole ton of people pulling receipts on you, buddy. That's quite the statement to say, especially when you say, I watched the film and I didn't really see anything. Well, then you don't know what you're watching. You go to footballxsandOs.com and start learning, teaching yourself about football a little bit, because obviously you don't know what you're looking
And
at.
Technic Chick says, "Who is that guy?" I don't know.
He's been a pretty good or pretty well-known writer with that group for a while. Normally people don't associate the names, they associate the content. You've seen his content around social media for a while. Okay. But if we even look at the guys who'd be the top 10 quarterbacks in the league, you're talking about Patrick Mahomes, you're talking about Josh Allen, you're talking about Justin Herbert, you're talking about Joe Burrow, you're talking about Lamar Jackson, you're talking about probably Tua in there. Oftentimes Matt Stafford's in that conversation. Those are kind of like the guys. Maybe we say top 7. When you start looking at that list and you say Brock Purdy, why is Brock Purdy not higher up on that list? And people always say, well, it's hard to look at that list and see, okay, with the things that Justin Herbert can do with his arm, and how the fastballs that he can throw, how deep he can throw that ball. Joe Burrow, we saw that throw from yesterday to Jamar Chase. I mean, it was an absolute dime, like 50 yards down the field. Looked like he didn't even have to try to throw it. But let's take Brock Purdy's decision-making and poise. Who are you putting above him in this league?
Yeah, as of right now.
And let's hear that in the chat. As of right now, through 5 games of this season, what quarterbacks around the league, based upon decision-making and poise? That's it. I don't want to hear about arm strength. I don't want to hear about ability to run out of there, because Trevor Lawrence is usually thrown into that mix. I don't want to hear about ability to run. I don't want to hear about ability to scramble around and stuff. I want to hear about decision-making and poise. Okay. Because why? Because those are the 2 most important traits a quarterback can have. When you look at the quarterbacks who have won Super Bowls in this league, you start looking at guys who have decision-making and poise in spades about everybody else. Let's take a look at Tom Brady, Joe Montana. Why was Joe Montana so great? Because he was Joe Cool, the poise. Because of the decision-making make. Why was Tom Brady so great? Because he always knew where to go with the ball. It was always the right answer. Always. That's why Tom and Joe are at the top of the heap and nobody else is close. And so if we're talking about what is the most important traits of a quarterback, it's going to be decision-making and poise every single time. If you have a quarterback who is really high in those 2 things, they can be very physically limited and be the greatest of all time. Again, Tom Brady. If we're talking about decision-making and poise, who in this league are you putting above Brock Purdy right now?
Yeah, I've been saying this week in and week out, and so it is your daily dose of the Drew Brees talk, because I just think that he resembles more of Drew Brees than any other quarterback in NFL history. I just think that his stature, his unassuming, when you see him walking down the street, if you were to see 15 years ago Drew Brees walking down the street, it would be the same kind of physique and same kind of thing. And then his decision making, his knowledge of the offense, the way that he can interpret what his eyes say and interpret and maneuver safeties and maneuver the defense and just boom, get the ball out. It just reminds me of Drew Brees, guys. It just does.
It absolutely does. And this is Drew Brees with one of the best running games in the league.
And he had
Think about
Kamara,
that.
Drew Brees. I mean, look at the Saints, the running games that they had too when they were really
good. He had
good.
running backs. The problem with Sean Payton loved to show how smart he was in the pass game. But he also had Drew Brees helping him out on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Like this is, again, we're talking about decision-making and poise. Let's talk about Josh Allen. Let's put the elephant in the room. And I'm not saying that Brock Purdy's better than Josh Allen. I mean, the Bills have been putting up lots of points. They've been doing
Turnovers.
really well.
That's easy
Okay,
argument, dude.
but when you start looking at how he turns the
Yeah,
ball
he
over,
throws too many
and
picks.
I love me some Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But again, we're talking about Josh Allen can do things. 0 picks. I mean, yeah, if we were to nitpick, we could say maybe they're going to throw to McCaffrey that look almost a hospital ball.
Yeah.
Every single quarterback will throw a hospital ball in this league. Everybody will.
Peyton Manning.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning has. Drew Brees has.
Yeah.
I mean, you go back and look at some of the highlights of Joe Montana in the 88 season. Or 89 season, and there's several hospital balls in there with Jerry Rice bouncing off guys right when he catches the ball.
Yeah.
You know, when we say decision-making poise, again, that is the 2 most important traits of a quarterback. Brock Purdy is hard to not keep him in at least the top 3 of the league right now.
And I love,
and I get it. It's 5 games into the season,
right.
and we can, but that's what you can only argue the data that's in front of you. You can't argue hypothetical data. And the data that is in front of us is showing that Brock Purdy is playing at the top of the league. And it's time we stop saying that this is a system quarterback. This is a guy that just because he has the weapons around him. Okay, well, Josh Allen wasn't Josh Allen until he got Stephon Diggs, one of the best receivers in the league. Josh Allen's completion percentage before he got Diggs was like 55% on the season. Brock Purdy's is sitting around 73% right now. That's bonkers.
It's not.
Again, let's understand how good this is. His quarterback rating is 123 on the season right now. Steve Young retired with the highest quarterback rating of any coach in NFL history, and his quarterback rating was like 98. This is a level of efficiency from the quarterback position. And again, I think it always comes back to people say, well, you know, Brock Purdy just looks so good because we were dealing with Jimmy G for years. And I'm saying, no, we won a whole lot of games with Jimmy G, and Jimmy G threw for it was like this close to 4,000 yards, had done a lot of really good things. It wasn't because Jimmy G. Brock Purdy looks really, really good because he really is playing at the top of the league.
It's crazy.
That's what this is about.
It's crazy to think. I want to show love to the lone draftsman who pointed out that Brock Purdy should have 30 touchdowns this year, and I think it'll be more. But when you think about that 2001 was the last time that the 49ers had a quarterback to throw 30 touchdowns. Like, this isn't just something that, well, it's this and this. Like, no, like, at what point can't you just say that the guy is an elite level at what he does? I mean, that.
And Jeff Garcia had Terrell Owens in his prime.
Yeah.
We're talking like
Sharpie.
a top 5 receiver
That was
all
the Sharpie.
time.
That
was the Sharpie time, and putting the ball on the star.
Popcorn.
I mean,
dancing with the cheerleaders. Prime time.
Well, that was Dallas.
Oh, he was with Dallas when he did that.
Yeah, he was Dallas when that happened. But I mean, when T.O. was there, that was 2002 and 2003. Was when T.O. was doing that, okay? And the 49ers, because Garcia had back-to-back 32 plus touchdown seasons, which he was the first 49ers quarterback to do that ever.
Crazy.
And you're talking, he had Terrell Owens in his prime. I love Debo and I love Brandon Ayuk. They've got a long ways to go before they are T.O. in his prime. I mean, again, we're talking about a guy who is in the top 5 receivers all time.
That's my quarterback.
You know, Brandon Ayuk is approaching, you know, maybe top 10, top 5 wide receivers this season. T.O. was top 5 all time.
Right.
And so, I mean, you should be throwing 32 plus touchdowns. I mean, there's 2 touchdowns a game. Brock Purdy is just, I mean, you can't say enough good things about the guy. He throws touchdowns, he wins games, he doesn't make bad decisions. He's able to he has this escapability. I mean, he's got a knack. One thing people say, oh, he kind of rolls back and out on too many things. Well, look at that touchdown to George Kittle. Dude climbed the pocket, moved out. I mean, this is clinics on quarterback play. And it's not just me that's saying this. Like, you could watch my breakdown that I did Brock Purdy on last Tuesday, and then I watched you can pull up Chase Daniels, who was an NFL quarterback, and we're saying almost the exact same things because it's on there in the film, and it's not It's not lying, and this stuff is there. Like there is you just this is a clinic on how you play quarterback in this league.
It's awesome to
And it's
see.
not and it's great to see, especially what I love about it. I mean, this is literally what I've been asking for quarterback from the 49ers team for the last 20 years since Jeff Garcia. Was you wanted to see a quarterback operate the system at an extremely high level and do all the little things of quarterbacking. And that's what he's doing. It's not about the physical traits he has to do this or do that, or off schedule and do that. No, you're talking about he understands when to climb the pocket, to roll out when he needs to do that, when to get the ball to his playmakers. He works through his progressions, exhausts the play. Like he does everything you want to see from a quarterback and playing quarterback at high level. And this is just absolutely a blast to see, and I love Brock Purdy. I love this team.
Man, what else do you say to that? It's been so fun to have a season so far where each game there is so many positive takeaways that overshadow some of the small things, like, hey, we got beat and gave up that one touchdown. Or I mean, Pittsburgh was 30-7. Okay, one touchdown. Like, it's been so great to see. Been great doing this with you and the
Adam, if I can plug one thing real quick, because I know you're about to roll us
yeah,
out of
yeah.
here. We've been going for a little while. I want to do something here if we're going to do these morning shows, and kind of like they have on Twitch, where when people usually end a stream, they'll send it over to somebody else. Hey, Eric Crocker's got his show on right now. So if you're here, we're gonna wrap this up here in a bow in the next 60 seconds or so.
Yeah.
Jump over to Eric Crocker's show, check him out, let him know that I sent you, and that support the great 49ers content creators out there. And we're going to pass off to whoever is live whenever we're doing these Mondays.
Yeah, I'll look to you and definitely let us know. I'll definitely check them out as well. And remember, guys, the key things, if you are catching us later and not live, it may be because you didn't hit the notification bell. Remember to hit that so that you know when we go live. Victory Monday, awesome to see. Like and share with your friends. Go up to 49er fans, ask them if they know about Johnny Dell Football Academy. Show them the videos. Finally had a video. Yes, 50,000 feels so good. Congrats, Johnny. So great to see. You can listen on Spotify, Apple, remember all that stuff. But the key is, guys, to share with your Niner friends and to show them. Just pull out your phone, say, hey, pull up YouTube real quick, and then show them and make them hit subscribe right there. Show them some of your favorite breakdowns, that kind of thing. That's how we do it. That is #family. So love it, Edward. So thank you so much to the Niner faithful for watching. Take care of each other. And as always, go Niners.